Welcome, Cindy, to the Magnetically Aligned Woman. And now, for everyone watching, Cindy is passionate about helping emerging entrepreneurs fully discover their own limitless power so they can create sustainable wealth through their passion and service to their higher purpose. Combining her strategic business savvy with quantum numerology and universal laws, Cindy teaches healers and changemakers the tools they need to first and foremost master themselves. This gives them the ability to create a solid foundation for their business that will stand the test of time, even in a rapidly changing world. Now, having deeply immersed herself into the shadow work of her own soul and healing old wounds of drug addiction, emotional abuse, and trauma, Cindy now sees her own limitless power and is here to lead other entrepreneurs to discover the same. She is a certified universal laws coach, facilitator of mastering the brain game, ooh, quantum numerologist, wealth activator, and strategic operations manager. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being on with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and dive into a conversation.
Now, this is all very new to me.
Mhm.
First and foremost, just what you do and how you even got to what you do. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I actually started my business 4.5 years ago as a virtual assistant. So I was working behind the scenes, building websites, doing all the tech work for other entrepreneurs. And what I quickly discovered is how much I hated doing that. And I was burnt out in less than 6 months. I thought that if I just worked a little bit harder, that somehow I would break through and have that moment of success. And I was working 15-hour days, 7 days a week, hustling and grinding, burning the candle at both ends, and literally killing myself, trying to make ends meet, living PayPal to PayPal, the entrepreneurial way of paycheck to paycheck, right? And then I met a spiritual entrepreneur, and I was not into spirituality. I was like, that stuff's just woo woo. I need science. Give me solid logical steps here. It makes no sense to me. But she was doing a daily Facebook Live talking about the number of each day. And she was also teaching tarot. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I kind of just started following her. And pretty soon I was like, hold on a second. There's something to this. And so I've spent the last 4 years doing a deep dive into the spiritual realm and understanding how we operate, but from a scientific perspective, because I didn't just fall headfirst into spirituality. I still needed to understand the science behind it, how it actually works. I need evidence. And so I started just really studying it. And the numerology for me had the most evidence of all. And so that's really where I leaned into.
I love that. I feel like we're very aligned in that aspect.
Mhm.
I'm leaning a little bit more into spirituality now, but I'm still like digging for like the physical evidence behind everything. Like, okay,
Yeah.
why are these things connecting? And that's why I have you here with me today. And when you say like master yourself, is this part of
Mhm.
alignment? Because this whole show is about how to find more alignment with yourself, and you teach people how to serve through their higher purpose.
Yeah.
So for you, what does alignment mean, and how do you help others find alignment within themselves and their business?
Yeah, it's funny. I always say alignment is this like personal development buzzword that nobody really understands what it means. Like all my chakras are aligned. I feel amazing, right? There's so much more to it than that. But from a very simplistic point of view, alignment is something you choose. You can choose to align with Netflix and a bottle of wine, or you can choose to align with wealth, happiness, and bliss. It's all your choice. Human beings are designed to feel the full spectrum of emotions, but our society has taught us to only feel the good ones. And if you feel the perceived negative emotions, then there's something wrong with you. You need to medicate it, shove it under a carpet, numb it out with food, alcohol, drugs, Netflix, whatever. And so we're not taught from a very young age to feel our emotions. If we feel great, then we celebrate that and we feel amazing and everything. And then all of a sudden, negative emotion comes along and we go, oh man, there must be something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. at all. But society has trained us to judge those emotions. And in the judgment of it, we create an alignment with judgment, blame, shame, guilt. And so then we try to numb it out because we don't like it, right? So alignment is this piece of saying, okay, well, I'm choosing to align with these aspects that I want to create in my life. I'm going to focus on that all the time. And yes, I'm going to have days where it doesn't feel so good. And then the full moon on 2020 is going to come along and keep you on the couch for 5 days. Or, there's these ups and downs to life. That's a wave that we ride all the time. But knowing what you want and focusing on that and paying attention to that all the time gives you the ability to, even in the midst of the turmoil and pain and grief, to still focus on what you want. And that's really what alignment is to me is, yeah, okay, I'm on the couch and yeah, I'm crying today and I feel guilt and shame, but I love and accept myself anyway. And this is what I want. To me, that's alignment.
Oh, wow. Now, I want to know a little bit more about your background that you healed yourself from. Was this part of your spiritual journey after you discovered your business coach?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been healing a lot of things for a long time. When I was 16 years old, my dad passed away suddenly. And in that moment, I made a decision that why bother trying? The universe was just going to abandon me, just like my dad did. And so I stopped taking responsibility for my actions. I kind of just threw it all to the wind and said, screw it, I'm just going to go live my life how I see fit. And I've always been a bit of a rebel. So I started pushing back against society. I was a straight A student. My dad died. I was like, oh, screw this. I'm going to go do drugs. And you name the bad decision, I made it. But in that, I learned a lot about myself. And there's very few people that I've met who are ex-drug addicts who have gratitude for the journey. I have absolute gratitude for my cocaine addiction because it made me the person that I am today. I came out of drug addiction in a moment of just like rock bottom. I had not been eating or sleeping for over a week. And my mom just looked at me. She's like, are you okay? And I had that split second to decide, was I or wasn't I? And thank God I chose, no, I'm not. So I did not, again, rebellious. I did not go through formal treatment. Instead, I chose to skip the country and go to travel the world to countries where if you did drugs, it was the death penalty. So I traveled for 2 years. I was in Indonesia and Dubai. Obviously stayed away from drugs because I wanted to stay alive. And by the time I came back, I was feeling quite empowered. But I started to kind of slide back when I got back into my own country and was bartending and flailing and not really sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I'd always known I was meant to be an entrepreneur. So I started following Brendan Burchard, Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, and I started really following the gurus. But these gurus were promoting entrepreneurship and not necessarily spirituality. So I was getting a lot of the information, the how-tos, but not really getting that deep spiritual connection with who I am and how I best show up in the world. So I was still flailing because I hadn't connected. There wasn't that alignment, right? And then I was bartending one night and had a really bad shift. I had a guy attack me over the bar. I had to pull a baseball bat out. Long story, but I drove home that night and this song came on the radio. It was called I Am the Fire by Hailstorm. And that song changed my life. I just listened to it on repeat for the rest of the night. I didn't go to bed and I started researching, like, what can I do with my life? And that was a real turning point in my life of like, I get to choose and it's time to take my power back. And so I decided to go back to school as a mature student. It turned out to not be the program that I wanted to take, but halfway through that program, I started building my business as a virtual assistant. And from there, really, I ran into a group of women, about 150 people at this event. And that's where I met my mentor, Joy Kingsborough. And that's when everything started to change for me. But the spiritual aspect of it only started coming in about 3 years ago when I realized that all the hows and all the strategy and all the things that are outside of us, it doesn't make any difference at all until you know who you are and how you show up in the world. If you don't know who you are and you want to be an entrepreneur, it's next to impossible to be successful. You need to know who you are and you need to be able to stand in your power.
Wow. Is this now transitioning into like your business now and how you work with um, newer entrepreneurs who are in this field, emerging entrepreneurs? Is that something that you help them work through, like
Mhm.
figuring out the spiritual aspect before going into the strategies and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I work with new and established entrepreneurs, but the new entrepreneurs that are coming in, I absolutely adore them because they've got a clean slate. They can come in and start with the proper foundation. What happens when I work with established entrepreneurs is I end up being a janitor and having to clean some stuff up. But with an emerging entrepreneur, this is where mastering the brain game comes in. This is a 10-week course that I teach that my mentor Joy Kingsborough created it, and then I became so obsessed with it that I made her let me teach it. But it's a 10-week course and it's very scientific based. So it leans into the spiritual aspects of who we are, but it teaches it from a perspective of how your brain operates, how your nervous system operates, what's really going on between the ears, and how to deprogram the computer program that was installed in us before we were 7 years old, and how to start untying some of those belief systems and that programming that we've carried for, this lifetime or longer, depending on how you look at it. And then what happens is what I've discovered in a lot of personal development courses, spiritual development courses, is that we do all this healing work and we create a vacuum, like an empty vessel. But the universe abhors a vacuum. And so what it does is it tries to fill it in with something. The thing is that we get to choose what we want to fill that vacuum with. But with most courses that I've experienced, I've been in this industry for over 30 years, most courses that I've experienced, they take you through this healing and then they send you on your way. And then the programming kicks back in and you just revert back to old habits and then you repeat the cycle. And it happens over and over and over again. We have to keep going back to the healer to keep getting that energy, right? Whereas the brain game takes you to that next level of, okay, now you have cleared all of that. Now, who are you? What do you want? And then here's how to get it.
Oh,
Yeah. And
wow.
as an entrepreneur, those are like the key things. Who are you? What do you want? And how do you get it?
I can attest to that because I've been on my entrepreneur journey for quite a while now, and it literally feels like flailing around until you figure
Yeah.
out who you are. And it's
Exactly.
an ongoing journey. I feel like it's always like the more you learn, the more you reinvent and the more you can choose. So it's an ongoing journey. And I'm curious, like, how does numerology play into all of this?
Numerology is everything. So, from a quantum perspective, everything that you look at, everything that you experience has a mathematical code. So, the numbers are the only thing that really give us a scientific basis to what's going on in our perceived reality. And so when I first learned numerology, I remember getting my first report from my mentor and just sitting there going, like, you don't, how do you know me? It was this remembering of, oh my God, yes, that is me, that is me. And I got so excited about myself. I was like, oh, look at me, I'm so cool, right? And so that's when I first really got into numerology, because you can't make that shit up. It was so accurate and so on point that I was like, I need to know more about this. And so I learned the practical numerology where each number has a specific meaning to it, where pretty much means the same thing all the time. And that was kind of the basis, the foundation of the work with numerology. But from there, there's so many other aspects to it. And I've taken it to the level of quantum, where numbers actually have a consciousness to them. So numbers are evolving and changing as we evolve and change. So the meanings in my system of numerology, there's only 9 numbers. And then, other numbers add up to that, but it's always reduced down between the numbers of 1 and 9. So each of us carries a ruling number that carries one of those energies. But when we start diving more into the quantum, what happens is that we can use these numbers and leverage this information to create what we want. So for example, the 3 energy, the 3 is a creator. The 3 wants amplification. The 3 wants you to just explode with creative energy. So if you're starting off with, okay, I know who I am and I know what I want, and you come into that 3 energy, then you can just sit in visualization and expand that out and use the number to leverage your success. And then in the 4 energy, you can start creating and building. And then in the 5, you pivot and change. And then in the 6, results. And it just keeps going from there. So as you start to understand how these numbers work in our favor, you start creating mathematical codes. You don't need to know the math. You just need somebody to support you in doing it.
Very interesting. And numerology is based on like your birth, is it your birth date and your name, or?
Yes and no. So there's several different systems of numerology. Depending on how you look at it, I personally use just the date of birth. A lot of people work with the names. Everything has math to it. So like, you could look at your fridge and it's got a mathematical code. You can look at your laptop, it's got a mathematical code. Everything does. To keep it simple, I use the date of birth. That's the easiest, fastest path through. We've got to pinpoint a spot, right? Quantum numerology is infinite. You could never run out of pathways and rabbit holes to go down. So we just need to pinpoint a spot to start, and that's usually the date of birth.
Oh. Now I remember we did mine just like in 2 quick seconds. What does the number 6 represent?
So the 6 as a ruling number is really about creating harmony and balance and peace in the world. The 6 wants connection, wants love. If you think of a traditional deck of tarot cards, the 6 represents the lovers. So you want that deep connection. You want to bring people together. You want love and peace and harmony. Probably like to avoid conflict at all costs because you will keep the peace at any level.
Oh,
And yeah. Yeah. But the ruling number 6 is really here to create harmony and balance. And in that harmony and balance, it means that sometimes there's going to be some ups and sometimes there's going to be some downs. But as a 6, you're mostly pretty even keel. You're not going to have those huge, exciting, like expansive moments. And you're also not going to have those massive moments of deep grief. I mean, there's going to be other layers to your chart as well, but that's just kind of the general overview of the 6, is that it's more even keel. And oftentimes when I meet 6s, they're like, I don't get why you're so excited. Because you're all about keeping balance.
well, I find myself pretty excited most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's always that up and down. So
Yeah.
like when you start with somebody who's brand new into the program, or like somebody who's listening right now who's just like piqued their interest, how does one go about the first few steps, or like the first steps?
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to dive in. There's a freebie on my website that would be a perfect place to start. So not only do each and every one of us carry a ruling number, but each day of the week carries an energy to it based on those 9 numbers. So what I encourage everybody to do is start there and start calculating your own biorhythm. So you can grab the freebie on my website. It gives you a calendar template and it teaches you how to calculate that day energy, so that every day you're tracking, okay, well, today's a 3 energy day. How do I feel today? And start noticing how that energy affects you, because your code, your mathematical code, is going to respond differently to that daily energy than anybody else. So you'll hear a numerologist talking, well, today's a 3 energy day, it's time to amplify, but you might feel like crap on a 3 energy day. And so when you start to understand your own biorhythm in that energy, it's incredibly powerful. I don't schedule my weeks based on Monday to Friday. I schedule my weeks based on 1 to 9. That's how I live my life.
And it's numerical, so it does go in order by each day. So if today's a 3 day, then tomorrow's for sure a 4 day.
Yes and no. When we have a new month, it interrupts the energy. When we have a new year, it interrupts the energy. It just depends. And so knowing how to calculate it, it's important, but it does go 1 through 9 until we hit a new month. And then there's an interruption in energy as that numerology changes over, because each month carries a mathematical code as well. So each month has its own energy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the
So
day
I
and
can,
a month.
yeah. So I can give you a little taste test of 2021 if you want to
Oh,
feel some
yeah.
forecasting. Okay.
Wow.
So this is my jam. Forecasting, just like we can predict the weather, we can also predict the energetic forces that we're surrounded by, and so we can leverage that to our advantage. When you know that there's a particular week that's going to be difficult, challenging, then you can create more spaciousness in your calendar so that you can navigate that and not feel obligated to do a million things when you're feeling all the emotions, right? And so forecasting is really where I love to dive in. 2020 carried the energy of the 4. So if you add up 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 equals 4, right? 2 plus 2, 2 plus 1, 2021 equals 5. So the 4 energy of 2020 was really about creating foundation, stability, and security. I don't know if you noticed, but 2020 didn't have much of that, right?
Yeah.
2020, that 4 energy is a focus on the body, a focus on our foundations and our security. What happened was it showed the polarity of all of our systems and foundations that don't work. And so it really increased our awareness of, oh man, healthcare system not working, educational system not working, political system not working. I could go on, right? It was blatantly obvious. And what it did was it forced us, the universe does not play games, literally forced us to go home and stick ourselves in a 4-sided box in our home and really consider what was most important to us. What's our foundation? What's my stability? What's my safety? How do I feel good in my body, right? And it was literally a smack in the face to show us, like, it's time for you to get your shit together
Yeah.
and stop running around chaotic with a million things on your calendar and go, 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 go. Focus on the body. And the 4 is that home energy, right? So it literally told us to go home. Now we're moving into 2021, and we've been feeling this for a couple of months already. The new year actually begins October, November. It does not start in January. So as we move into this 5 energy of 2021, the 5 is a deep, deep craving for freedom beyond anything else. So already starting to see this with people were okay with wearing a mask before. Now we're seeing anti-mask rallies left, right, and center. Don't put me in a box. I don't want to stay home. I'm going to break all the rules. Don't tell me I can't hang out with my family for the holidays, right? And so people are starting to push back because it's not working anymore. They've found their foundation and now they're ready. So the 5 is bringing in this energy of evolution, of change, of shifting into what does freedom really mean? And we're going to start seeing a lot of people coming through a spiritual awakening in 2021. But whereas my spiritual awakening took 5 to 10 years, we're going to start seeing awakenings happening in 18-day periods where it's happening like that. Which is why I'm so passionate about entrepreneurs, because we need coaches more than any other time in the history of mankind right now. Because imagine what it would be like to go through a 5-year awakening in 18 days.
Incredibly intense.
Yeah. So 2021 is this bridge into unity consciousness, into a new way of being human. That's really what 2021 is about.
That's incredible you mentioned this, because like in 2020, that's when I had really started to question what the heck was I doing in my life too, and now moving more towards this path. So everything you mentioned, I was like, oh,
Yeah. And you're not the only one. There's a lot of people that really started questioning, like, what am I doing with my life? Right? Because all of the illusion of what we thought was real is starting to be torn down, where we're starting to see the illusion for what it really is. We're starting to see the game for what it is. And we're starting to figure out how to play by the rules. Nobody told us the rules to the game, but now we're starting to understand them and we can start creating the reality that we want. There's so much hope to 2021. I get so excited when I talk about it.
I love that. I love that so much. And that was the whole purpose of this event, was helping people in their journey really figure out like, okay, from 10 or 15 different speakers, you have to hear the message in so many different ways to understand what works best for you, right? And now I always like to say, when you feel good about your decisions, when you feel like you are in alignment with what you want to create in this world, then abundance will show up. So, what does abundance look like for you?
I love this question so much. Wealth activation is my jam. I see so many entrepreneurs who, I mean, we all want to be of service. We all want to give back. We want to help people. We want to rescue people. But God didn't give you your gifts for you to starve. God gave you your gifts so that you could create wealth for yourself first, so that you can help more people. So wealth, abundance, prosperity, whatever word you want to choose, to me, that is really, it's a feeling state. Everything outside of ourselves is created here first. But we've been trained by society to say, well, that's what I see, so that must be real. But when you really look at the quantum and what's going on, none of it's real. It's all a lie. It's all fake. And we can only perceive tiny, tiny little pieces of it. And so when we truly understand that wealth, safety, freedom, love, peace, all of those things that we desire are created within our own body first. And when we generate that own power within ourselves, then we move that out into the world. We are giving that to the world. And what happens is the laws of the universe state, when we generate whatever emotion we want to feel, abundance, wealth, when we generate that within our own body, universe states, then you must, and I use the word must specifically, you must receive back tenfold or more. The laws state it. But we are so busy looking at our bank accounts and our external world that we're like, and we're worried about money and we're, oh, I need to make ends meet and I need to put this offer out so that I can make more money. No, you go inside first. What does wealth feel like? And to every single person, it's going to feel different. Wealth is a frequency. And so when you start generating that frequency wave in your own body, just by closing your eyes and putting your hand on your heart and asking, what does wealth feel like? And the more you do that, the more wealth you see reflected back to you.
Oh, I love that. Can this feeling be a constant, like you can constantly embrace this feeling, whether you're out and about or whether you're sitting in the room feeling your heart?
Yeah, and the more you do it, the more it becomes a natural state of being. What happens is our bodies are just this thing that does what the brain and the heart tells it to do, right? So if we're constantly telling through the mind and the heart, generate wealth. What does wealth feel like? What does love feel like? What does peace feel like? And if we're constantly creating that within our body, the body starts vibrating at that frequency and it becomes a natural state of being. So when people talk to me about wealth now, I've been activating and generating wealth for over a year. To me, wealth is a natural state of being. When I see this state of my bank account, I'm like, yeah, of course. I don't get excited. I don't get lit up. I'm like, yeah, duh, of course. Because I just expect that because it's my natural state of being. Now, there's things that I'm still working on. Of course, this is not a one and done thing. It's something that needs to be continuously activated and generated. We are the creators and the perceivers of our reality. So we need to create it all the time, not just look at it.
Very interesting. So, like, how do we create it all the time? Like, is there a certain practice you do every morning to set the tone for the day? Or, like, I don't know how it works for you.
Yeah, there's lots of things that I do. I have a pretty strict non-negotiable morning routine, but one of the biggest and fastest paths to it is a modality that I call Q. It's spelled QUE. My mentor, Joy Kingsborough, she channeled this through. She's a master channel. And what it is a way of mentally and emotionally moving the waves and particles in your body. and creating a circuit. So everything in the quantum field operates on a circuit, which is the infinity symbol, right? It's the 8. So the 8 is what creates things in our physical reality. So every morning I sit and I create the circuit in my body. And then I create that circuit that moves out into the world. So even if you're just sitting in your body and saying, okay, well, what does wealth feel like? You're creating a circuit of wealth in the body. And then you move that circuit out into the quantum field. So I do Q every morning, non-negotiable. I started off with Q. I was just playing with it and experimenting to see what I could do with it. And I thought, I'm not one to attach dollar amounts to anything. I usually don't. But this time around, I was like, I'm just going to see, because I need to prove to myself that this works. So I said, I wanted to create $10,000 in a month. I created $10,000 in 5 days. And then I did it again 5 days later.
Oh my goodness.
Q is the fastest path. Absolutely.
Wow, incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
know like you have something special for the audience today. Would you be able to share that with us as well?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things. So I run the 21 Days of Wealth every quarter. So the next one's going to be in April. So there is a wait list available for that. If you wanted to join on that, you can come in, learn about what wealth actually is, activate wealth. I'll teach you Q in that so that you know how to do that. So there's a wait list for that. And then I do have the monthly momentum and mastery freebie, which is the way of calculating the daily energy so that you can start to understand your own rhythm, your own biorhythm within that daily energy. And it's going to teach you how to calculate some of the numerology. So if you're fascinated by numerology, it's a great starting point to just kind of dive into what do I do with this information?
Thank you so much. Oh my God, I'm super excited about this. And before we end today's interview, can you share some words of wisdom or like your favorite quote with us?
Words of wisdom or favorite quote? Yeah. It's not a favorite quote unless you're quoting me. Awareness is everything. When we're aware of what's going on in the computer program between the ears, we have the superpower to be able to change. If we're not aware, we can never change. Awareness is everything, and it is the first place to start. And sometimes we don't want to look because sometimes it can feel icky. And sometimes we're like, I don't even want to face that. The most powerful thing you can ever do is look yourself in the mirror and stare down those demons in the eyes and tell them that you're more powerful than they are.
I love that. I love that. It's actually something I preach as well. Awareness.
Awareness is everything. I sound like a broken record to my clients all the time.
But it's true. When
Yeah.
you're awake and you're conscious and you know exactly like what you're thinking, what you're doing. So thank you so much for coming on, Cindy. It has been an absolute pleasure and I am mind blown, like just mind blown.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And for everybody listening, go check her out, please. And I can't wait to see you guys on the next episode. Bye, everyone.